Hey everyone, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. My name is Chelsea Kaufman. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Learn, and I'm excited to chat with you and maybe learn a little bit more about you and hopefully give you an opportunity to learn more about what we're doing. But I think it'll be a good night. Jake.
Everybody, my name is Jake Keller. I am the Career Services Manager here, so I'm excited to get into things a little bit more. Welcome.
Wonderful. Well, really excited to have you. This is kind of our proposed schedule for the evening. We want to just cover sort of a top to bottom of what it means to be a web developer, and then what does the journey look like to get there. So we want to spend a little bit of time getting to know all of you, and then talking about that process. But we're always open to questions. So at Learn, we are a remote classroom right now. And so this is what our day-to-day looks like, is that we all come together in a Zoom meeting in order to facilitate our learning experience. So this is definitely my normal. So with that, we want to treat this Zoom room with all of the etiquette that we would in any of our classrooms, real, virtual, or anywhere in between. And so with that, we're very passionate about creating an inclusive environment. We ask that everybody is respectful of everyone else's journey coming here. We want to be cognizant of our language and how that could affect other people. So as we're interacting, just ask that you do so with the best intentions. Part of this this meetup is also for us to answer your questions. So we want to get to know you. We want to talk with you. In our classroom, we require all of our students to have their cameras on because part of the interaction process is seeing each other and being able to read facial expressions and being able to respond in real time to the room. And so I would ask all of you to also turn your cameras on in order for us to facilitate a better conversation. Please ask questions. Again, like, we are 100% here to help you understand what our program is about. And so if there's anything that comes up at any point, feel free to unmute and ask questions. That is why we are here. So it is so important. It is on the list twice. And with our Zoom etiquette, please, like I said, unmute and ask questions. But as part of the process, just to avoid any background noise, if you're not currently talking, just keep yourself muted just to avoid any interference. We'll do the same. But again, please just feel free to unmute yourself and at any point jump in. I don't consider interruptions a thing. I think it is conversation, which is encouraged. Part of our daily routine in the classroom is every morning we do a check-in. So we come together at 9 o'clock and start our day. And we start our day by everybody sort of answering like a silly question, kind of an icebreaker, get to know you question. And it's how we kind of mentally shift away from whatever we were doing earlier in the day to being here together in our classroom. And so I would love to share that experience with all of you. So for our little group check-in, you can introduce yourself, tell us where you live. I think it's fascinating now to meet people in Zoom meetings that maybe live much farther away than I had originally anticipated. I had a Zoom meeting with somebody from England not too long ago, and I did not know that that was happening. And then all of a sudden it was just like, where are you? It's like, oh, literally in another country. That's awesome. And so it's always fun to see where everyone is. And then our fun question will be, if you had a superpower, what would it be? So I'll kick us off. We'll just kind of popcorn around to the group and answer those questions. So like I mentioned earlier, my name's Sarah. I live in San Diego. I live downtown and I love it. And if I had a superpower, I would absolutely teleport. It'd be so great to just like pop over, like never have to travel. Did I steal yours, Chelsea? Never have to worry about car or plane travel again. That would be my choice. I'll pass it over to Ashley.
Hello, my name is Ashley. I live in San Diego in the National City area. And then if I could have a superpower, the one that always pick is also teleportation. I think just the fact that I could travel for free and be so many places so fast. And then I'll pick Jacqueline.
Hi everyone, I'm Jacqueline, or Jackie for short. Actually, I'm living in New York, but I'm currently in San Diego for the summer, visiting family. And I was gonna say teleportation just because I'm across the across the country, so that would be very convenient. I'll pass it on to Gerardo.
Yeah. Hey everyone, Gerardo, or G for short. I'm a manager with the alumni network at Reality Changers. Know a couple of you in here. I hate to be repetitive, but that was the first one that came into mind, which is teleportation. Now that we're thinking about traveling again, it could not only save us plane ticket fares, but also traffic for regular work. Just being in the pandemic, like staying outside of traffic has been very beneficial. And so I'll pass it on to Roberto, if you're able to speak. If not, that's cool too. I'll pass it on to Jake.
G. My name is Jake. I'm again the career services manager here at Learn. I live in San Diego as well. And if I had one superpower, I'm going to break the trend here. This is one of my favorite questions, and mine would be to be able to read people's minds. I think that would be super handy in a lot of different situations. Yeah, so that would be my answer. Not teleportation.
I think you got to pass it on.
Learning how to popcorn, huh? I'm going to pass it to Carolina. Or maybe we'll, oh, Carolina's there. Carolina, are you there? Okay, I see her in the chat. How about we pass it to TJ in the interim here?
Cool, thank you, Jake. I also am from Learn, like you mentioned. I live in San Diego, just outside of Ocean Beach. If I were to have one superpower, I'd have 2 extra arms. I feel like I could just get so much more done with 2 more sets of arms. Is anybody else not gone? I know we were, let's see, I believe everyone. Maybe
I think Chelsea.
Chelsea, sorry.
I am Chelsea. I already kind of did that part, but I live in Chula Vista, and I was also going to say teleport, but as I was sitting here thinking, the next best thing would probably be like super speed. It's kind of the same. But I could still, I was thinking that if I was just teleporting people places, I wouldn't get to listen to any of my like podcasts or audiobooks because that's the only, like, traveling is the only time I get to do that. So if I had super speed, then I could still do that and just get places. So, but if anyone, I did want to invite, if anyone else that if you can't get your audio to work, or if you want to just put your answers in the chat, we'd be happy to entertain that too. Is that okay, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. Great. All right. Well, well, it's nice. Just talk about what does it mean to be a developer? What does that pathway to being a developer look like? And there's many, many reasons to learn programming, some of which we'll touch upon. But I love this quote from Carl Sagan. I mean, it has clearly aged well because this is still true today. And I think one of the coolest things about becoming a developer is starting to realize how much work goes into the technology that we use every day. The apps that, for me, I'm like annoyed if something doesn't work exactly the way I want it to. And, of course we get frustrated by speeds not being as fast as we want, or glitches or whatever in the products that we're using, which is completely understandable. We're demanding as users, and that's a good thing. But when you start to think about and learn about the processes that create these applications, you have a whole different appreciation for it and how dependent we are on these technologies. Everything that, especially during the last year, everything that we've been doing, all the communication has been through some kind of technological medium, and somebody had to create that. And to create that, you have to understand it. And so I just think that this quote is particularly poignant when we're talking about what does it mean to start this journey together. So I'm going to hand it over to Jacob, our career service manager, and talk a little bit about what does it mean to work as a developer. We'll kind of move backwards from there into the process of becoming a developer.
Thanks, Sarah. I think there's a couple key points that I wanted to talk here about working as a developer and why it might be an interesting career path for you specifically. I think bunch of different bullet points you'll see here, but I think one of the biggest things about the tech industry, as Sarah mentioned, as things are starting to, as we've seen, especially with things like COVID coming up, technology has been more important now than it has ever been. So the field as a whole is really continuing to grow, and it's something that has been steadily growing for a long time now. I think another part that's really cool about a career in development is that it always has you learning, because technology itself is always continuing to grow, and new technologies are becoming more commonplace. People who find really fulfilling careers in technology are people who love to continuously learn. And I think, yeah, we'll probably talk about that when we talk about the Learn program and what it teaches you. But again, one of the most important things that it teaches you is actually how to learn and how to stay up to date with technology, because the things that you learn in the classroom this year, 10 years down the line, are going to be entirely different. So helping prepare you for a kind of a career and lifelong learning process itself. Some other cool things about working as a developer is that you have access to a lot of remote opportunities. So another thing with the workforce in development is that even before COVID, which has had a huge impact on a lot of other industries, the engineering teams and developers have already had kind of a footprint in the remote world specifically. So I think it's something that, again, opportunities to work at different companies with different teams, different technologies and different locations are even more applicable now because of the really abundance of remote opportunities itself. A couple more things to mention are that people who, again, do really well in careers and development, a lot of times are people who are interested in the challenges that it brings up. So specifically, problem solving is a huge skill set that lends itself to working as a developer. You're continuously trying to understand how to do things like quantify and figure out problems that aren't necessarily very intrinsically quantifiable, if that makes sense. So trying to figure out ways to wrap your mind around problems. And what's really cool is that it also allows for you to take kind of this artistic and beautiful and creative side of your skill set and apply it in a very analytical sense as well. So it's a really cool career combination of both, an ability to show how creative you are, as well as show how analytical you can be. And one of the other great things about this career path in general is the fact that it is superly high in demand. So again, as technology becomes more important to society as a whole, working as a developer and careers in development are going to be even more important and going to just increase in terms of the amount of demand. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about how education plays a factor into that as well. And then one motivating factor that drives some people to working as a developer is that it's a particularly well-paying industry, quite frankly, as well. So you can see in the infographic to the right from Glassdoor, there's some more information about understanding your career trajectory and the possibilities of different types of titles and what that means in terms of compensation. So entry-level roles are pretty well-paying roles for this field specifically as well. Beyond just understanding and working as a developer, there are a ton of different applications of the skills that you might learn in your time during Learn, or just in considering a career path that has anything to do with coding. So this again, this infographic shows a kind of a ton of different arrays of careers that you could take skills that you learn in coding and really apply that in a ton of different mediums. So this graph shows a little bit more if you're looking for something that is more or less people focused. I think some people are people, if that makes sense, who really enjoy interacting with other people. So you get people who are teachers, technical recruiters, sales engineers, technical support folks. You've probably come across working with technical support folks in some way, shape, or form before. And again, those people typically find a lot of reward out of actually working with people. It can also be a career where maybe you aren't so much of a people person, or you want to be more of an individual learner, and what motivates you is being able to create something by yourself, and you're just a little bit more independent. In which case, then you can go into on this infographic, it talks about roles in designing, data science, security and analysis, research and development, databases specifically. The whole point of this is there's a ton of different subsets of careers where you can take the skills that you learn at Learn and in coding in general and apply it in a variety of different ways. There's a ton of different career paths within engineering specifically that take advantage of maybe your skills are best suited in more of a that traditional analytical sense, or maybe you have an eye for design and you want to understand kind of the intersection between art and technology, in which you can take your coding experience and really dive into more of a design related career field as well. But lots of opportunities, different types as well. And then getting a developer job. I think this is something that we spend a ton of time, and really what my purpose at Learn Academy is specifically dedicated to doing is helping you take the things that you learn in the classroom and your time that you spend with Sarah and figuring out how to apply that stuff and actually get a developer job. So one of the things about getting a job in development, while all this information sounds fantastic, like why wouldn't you want to go into one of these careers? It can be really hard to get your foot in the door at a lot of different companies or in different fields as well. So what we actually take some time to do through the Learn program is focus on how to develop you as a professional and prepare you for getting that first job. That's a huge part of it. And I guess we'll talk about a little bit more about some of the aspects that help attribute to that. But I think beyond that, we also offer career services for life. So again, that's a resource that you can tap into us not only to get that first developer job, but maybe 10 years down the line when you're looking to make the transition into a management role. We're still going to be here. We're going to be here to help you make that transition as well. And I think what's also unique about a lot of this is that the way we approach everything from a career services side of the house is very individualized. So people come to our program with a variety of different backgrounds, skills, experiences, personalities, and we want you to lean into those things and use those to your advantage, but also coach you on some of the areas where you might need a little bit more help and support. And those are different for each person. So instead of saying, here is one way that you should do everything, we kind of take an individualized approach from the career services side and make sure that we're doing things that make sense for you specifically. And then there's a couple different paths that can lead you to a career as a developer specifically. So there is the traditional computer science degree that is done through, going to a four-year institution and spending time where you typically learn a lot more about the theoretical knowledge required to obtain an entry-level position in development. A lot of times you can take that information and apply it to, again, those variety of different fields. There is the bootcamp approach, which is our approach, which is more so a skills-based and accelerated approach. That's not so much geared towards that traditional university experience that can be a little bit costly for some folks, and also can be not as efficient for somebody who's looking to make a transition in their career at a different point of their life as well. So the bootcamp approach takes a different angle at trying to ingrain those skills in a way that's a little bit more, I think maybe I'm biased from my perspective, but practical, and allows you to use those skills right away and not as much theoretical. And then the third way you can get into this field is also just through self-study. A lot of what makes the industry and technology and engineering careers really interesting is the fact that you, more often than not, are judged on your ability to do the job and not necessarily how you obtain those skills, which is a really cool thing about development careers and the tech industry more generally. More often than not, people don't necessarily care how you got to where you got to, but more so, can you actually do the job? And I think that's part of just the sign of this being a bit more of a progressive industry than some of the other ones that you might be interested in.
Awesome, thanks, Jake. Yeah, and these are all, I mean, sorry, I don't know, right. Like everyone takes different approaches to learning coding, and like Jess said, I think that's one of the values in this industry is that you get people with different experiences, and when you build a team and you have people that have all these different pathways through their education to get to that point, it becomes very powerful. And I've had students who are computer science graduates. They went and learned the theory, but they also just feel like, I didn't really get the practical experience, and so they do the boot camp, and then, I mean, of course, that is just like wildly popular. People, they are a very marketable candidate at that point in the job search. But I've had people who have not gone to college at all and still been successful in our program. So I like the mix that we get, which is great. So at Learn, so if you're excited about programming and you decide to go the bootcamp route, there's lots of different boot camps, and all of them are fantastic in different ways. So obviously our experience is about us, so that's what we'll talk about. But at Learn, we focus on building web applications. And a web application is a website that stores information for you. So a web page would be like if I went to look at a restaurant web page, I could read the menu and just check out information and obtain data by just reading their page. A web application would be something like Zoom, where I go in, I create an account. It stores my username and password. I can create meetings. Those meetings are stored by Zoom. And so a web application, something that stores your data as a user, is what we're focused on learning at Learn. And really, web development in general is this process of taking languages that exist and putting them together in different and interesting ways. Web development languages are a lot like human spoken languages. We use them to communicate. We use them to communicate with each other, and we use them to communicate with the computer to deliver a set of instructions that the computer understands and then produces a response. But we're not creating the languages. Somebody else did that for us, luckily. And so we're just taking those languages that already exist and putting our own spin on them, like writing a poem with an English language that already exists, but the words are put together in a particular way that's meaningful to us. And so when we talk about the technologies that we use, we break them down into two sort of generalized categories. Generally, we talk about the front end and the back end of development. And so the front end is what you see when you look at a web page. So user experience is the user interaction. It's the part that makes a page appealing because it's pleasant to look at. It's also the part that makes a page appealing because it's easy to use. I'm sure you've all been on web pages and you're like, I know I want to go this place. How come I can't find the navigation button to go there? Or how come when I click this thing to drop down, it takes me to a different page? And you're like, why is that happening? Like that's the responsibility of a web developer, is to make those interactions smooth and intuitive. Because we all use the same, styles of web pages. And so there's this kind of agreed upon set of rules that navigation, hamburger buttons are going to be on the right-hand side and they're going to drop down a particular way. And when you shrink from a desktop size to a mobile size, there's sort of this agreed upon set of rules that's going to make that application still look good and be functional. And so that's all the responsibility of somebody who's working in more of the front end. And then the other sort of generalized category is the back end. And that's all of the data. And so that's where we store information in databases and how you retrieve it. It's connecting with the internet. So when you hit enter on a URL, unbeknownst to you, you're starting this big process of making a big request and response cycle that's going to find that code that's living on a server somewhere and bringing you back the information. And it all happens in a flash. It happens in less than 3 seconds. And so as a web developer who works primarily in the back end, it's your job to store that data really efficiently so that when a user says, hey, I want to see this next page, that request can go out, come back in a flash, and then that information gets presented to the user in a meaningful way. And so the back end is very data structure heavy and working closely with how the internet really works at the developer level. So generally speaking, in the 10,000-foot view, that's what we do at Learn. And if that excites you in any way, then we can talk a little bit more about what it would mean to join Learn as a bootcamp. Coding is really, really hard. Like if it was easy, everyone would do it. It's really challenging, but it's also really rewarding. And so we hope that our students are committed enough to the process to be willing to be bad at something in order to get better. So it's one of my favorite little sayings, but I'm gonna turn over to Chelsea to talk a little bit about that process of getting into Learn.
Awesome. I don't know if you can hear them, but I have small children behind me that are like doing some kind of dinosaur dance right outside my door. So I'm gonna try and focus here, but it is very distracting. Great. So before I jump into joining the bootcamp, I kind of want to go over the structure of the course itself, so that you know what you're getting into. I think we did. Sarah and Jake, thank you for kind of going over what the end result could be and some of the things you might learn. But the structure of our bootcamp is a 4-month program. You spend the first 3 months with us in the classroom, specifically most of your time with Sarah and some of our other instructors. And that first 3 months is full-time, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And we do that for a few reasons. One, because that immersion process, we know that learning a new language, learning something new, that immersing yourself in it is the best way to do it in an accelerated rate. And so we really work really hard to make sure our curriculum follows that path and that we're giving you a really solid foundation. Because in that 4th month, we partner with companies to provide an internship. So by the time you leave this program, you've got that base set of skills and you have that experience in your internship, which is so important for the job hunt, for solidifying the skills that you learned throughout the course. And so for us, it was really important that both of those things happened, that you had the time in the classroom, that you're really learning, you're connecting with your cohort, you get to ask questions and really dive into the material and really feel like, what is it like to be a developer day in and day out for those first 3 months. But it was really our intention when we set up our curriculum that that classroom time really looks and feels as much like working on a dev team. So when you leave that classroom, it is mirrors what it'll be like in your internship. And then when you leave your internship, it'll be a lot like what it's like working for a company. And so not just are these skills that we're learning, but we're teaching you how to connect with developers, how to talk to developers, what are the tools that they're using. So those first few weeks are not as scary because you've been doing it with us through that time. And then the other part that I honestly is probably the thing that I'm the most proud of is the community of people that we have such a great community of alumni and community partners and companies that are all together and rooting for you and are really excited to usher new people into the industry. And we were so excited to talk to the folks at Reality Changers because I think that I mean, I am excited to work with different communities and to kind of give as many opportunities as we can. So my dinosaur. Anyway, so that's kind of the overall structure of what the cohort is. And the process of joining, if you're interested in learning more, we have an enrollment specialist, Kumba. She couldn't be on the call tonight, but what we do is you would set up an interview with her, and it's super informal because the thing with us is that we want to make sure that we're going to be the right place for you. And so that interview is a conversation. It's what are your goals? What do you want to do? How are you learning? Are we going to be the right place for you? Because your success is what makes us successful. So our goal in that meeting is to really understand whether our program is going to get you where you want to go. So talking about your goals, talking about you and what it is that you want to get out of it long term, we want to get that and help you throughout that process. So it's a pretty simple application on our site, and then a short interview process with Kumba, and we'll go through there. We also have scholarship opportunities that we're extending, especially to Reality Changer alumni. And then also have some other financing options that we're offering to all of you as well. And so if you're interested in learning more about that, then I would definitely recommend setting up a meeting with Kumba so she can learn more about where you're at and how we can get you into the industry. Did I get it all, Sarah?
You did great. And I'll just, on a personal note, I went to Learn. That was where I started my journey in tech. Prior to going to Learn, I didn't come from a technical background. I studied social sciences in college. I worked at restaurants for a really long time and was just like, it was a thing that I did, but it was definitely not the passion that I wanted. And when I wanted to make a change, I did my research and found Learn and was like, this seems cool. But as soon as I was in the program, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I love what we're doing here. I love the community support. I love that they would take a chance on someone like me who had absolutely like nothing towards that, like, you know, traditional education of being someone going into tech. And I just definitely found my people, and I'm so happy to have grown with the company over the last couple of years. So I can very much empathize with people who are struggling to break into that industry. And that's definitely where my passion lies, is like trying to make the barrier of entrance as low as possible so that if you want to do this and you're going to work hard, like, I'm going to help you do it.
And we've had people come from all sorts of different backgrounds and industries and create, I mean, some things that's created. We had somebody who was a farmer out in Idaho that came and went through the program. We had a sailboat captain, and then we had like, you know, folks that were just working in the service industry. That we have Uber drivers, we have like all sorts of people. So it was never, I often get the question, like, what's the kind of person that comes through the boot camp? And there's never like one industry. That usually when we're interviewing people and we're talking to them, it has more to do with understanding, you know, how do you think? Is this something that's going to excite you? You know, are you sitting down and coding for an entire day? Is that something that you're going to want to do? And understanding what that process is like, and what the skills are. So
I just love that so much about Learn. Every time we have a new cohort that comes together, everyone's bringing their personal experiences and their backgrounds. And I just feel like in that moment, as we kind of get to know each other, and we're going through this really intense, really hard thing together, and everyone's having to support each other and help each other out. And we grow, and it's like the cohort itself is greater than the sum of its parts, because everybody gets all of the knowledge that everyone else brings. And it's a really magical thing, that sort of this energy that exists within our classroom for these few months. And it's wonderful to see the cohorts support each other as they go off to find jobs and continue to be friends long after their cohort has graduated. And then we've now seen Learn alum start to hire each other as they move into higher positions in their company, and they're able to reach out to people they knew at the company at Learn and hire them within their company, or come back to do internships, and just, it's a really wonderful kind of it's starting to like create its own inertia and run, which is wonderful. All right. I think we're gonna talk about some other things. If you're like, hey, this seems cool, I want to just learn a little bit more about it. Talk about a couple of options here. So, Jay.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah and Chelsea. Like Sarah mentioned, learning to code is hard. And really starting that first step in your journey is kind of scary as well. So we really try to make that as easy as possible and break down the barriers as much as possible. And one of the ways that we do is we offer a lot of beginning workshops and a lot of beginners events. And we mentioned that our program, it is fairly beginner friendly. To take the program does require some skills though. So we help bridge that gap with our Jumpstart weekend. So we dive in the fundamentals of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which are front-end programming languages, like Sarah talked about earlier. And we also dive into a few other things like Git and GitHub, but by the end of the weekend, you'll have coded a website from the ground up and then also deployed it live to the internet. And that's also the best way to really see how our program works. Sarah, some other instructors, and some other of our alumni, they come in, they volunteer during the weekend, and they help you learn from the beginning, from zero to deploying your first website. So Jumpstart is a great way to see how the program works, to see how the classroom works, and also learn really all the skills that you need to start the program. So our next one coming up is August 13th. August 14th and August 15th. It's 20 hours in total. So we go from Friday from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Saturday, not 5 a.m. Excuse me, nobody's up at 5, maybe just me. But we go from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. We do, and then we do 9 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday. And we'll also send out some follow-up information on how anybody from Reality Changers can attend this for free. We also have some other workshops that we do as well. So we do Jumpstart, and we do that about once every other month. And then we have a whole series of workshops that we do as well. So Mini Jumpstart is kind of Jumpstart just compressed into one day. It's our one-day coding bootcamp prep course. That's coming up next Saturday. So that's 6 hours long. We'll send out a link as well if you're interested in joining. We also have a AMA, which is a Ask Me Anything kind of event. We're doing that next Wednesday. In honor of Father's Day, we're bringing in some dad coders. So I think it's going to be fun. You'll be able to hear from one of our founders, some of our alumni, and some other individuals who are in the coding world and dads. So it's going to be a fun little event. And then we also have a packed lineup of some other great events coming up. So WTF is Coding is very similar to this presentation. We just dive into a little bit more on the coding side. We do that on we're going to do that July 14th. Build your first website. We build your first website. So we really start from the ground up, and we build a very simple website in a weekend. And then we have another AMA on the 24th and another mini Jumpstart on the 28th. And then, like we talked about in August, we have Jumpstart coming up. So a lot of opportunities to where if you're just interested in getting your feet wet in coding and really taking that first step, we want to help you. So we'll send out a bunch of follow-up information after this presentation on how you can join us at some of these events. And then we also do meetups. So we have a monthly meetup that we do in-house, where we bring in maybe an alumni, a community partner, and we do a Friday lunch meetup from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. We're looking for our next topic here for July, but we just wrapped up June's presentation with Kevin Gorham. He is a software engineer at a company called Fine-Tune. He's also a resident of the software residency program, and he led a discussion on React. It's really cool. It's on our YouTube page if you want to check that out. recommend doing that and following us. We post all our presentations on there, and we have some really good content as well. You can also follow us all across the web, social media, everywhere. Recommend checking out. You'll really stay in the loop of everything that's happening here at Learn. And that's all I have to report on.
Lovely. Cool. We want to just open the floor and let you all ask any questions that you have. As long as it's in the realm of, you know, appropriate content, nothing's off the table. So we're pretty open books here.
I did have a question. So with some of our graduates that aren't living in San Diego, and with the whole reopening of California, did you plan the boot camp? Is it going to be fully online, or are you going to be expecting students to be physically inside of a classroom?
I'll go. We're going to continue to be virtual through the end of the year. So all of our courses will be online, but still live. And so folks can participate from anywhere, but we do operate in Pacific time. So the classroom is still 9 to 5 Pacific time. The other thing that I didn't mention, but should have, was that because they're virtual, we do provide laptops to all of our students. So it's a loaner, but it does give you that opportunity to work on something that we've set up so that the environment has all the tools and languages and everything's uploaded and ready for you on that machine. So that'll be provided for you also.
It's been kind of an interesting adventure when we first were like, well, we need to go, obviously everybody needed to move into this virtual space. And we thought like, well, we've always been so limited by our physical space. Like, what if we just kind of open it up? And it's been really cool to see other people joining us. Like our first student who was outside the San Diego area was in Oakland, but now like it's kind of normal. And our next cohort that's coming up, we have somebody from Utah, from Arizona, and someone coming from West Virginia. And I was like, hey, you know, like the time zone difference, like you're cool with it? He was like, oh, that's my jam. Like, that's my working, the best time that I work anyway. I was like, love it.
I had a question kind of following up with that. What languages do you teach? It was JavaScript, and there were 2 more.
Yeah, so our front-end languages, we teach, we do HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then there's a JavaScript library called React that takes the JavaScript language and manipulates it in a particular way to create user interfaces. So JavaScript and React is sort of our front end. And then in the back end, we use a framework called Ruby on Rails, and it's written in the Ruby programming language, and then it uses a Postgres database, which is a flavor of SQL databases.
I have a follow-up question to that, Sarah. Is there a reason why we teach a full stack, and what is a full stack?
That is a great question, TJ. Full stack is that full web application. So you're creating both the user view and the ability to store data. And you can make a full stack application from tons of different types of languages. But languages are a tool for the job. For our job is teaching the fundamentals of programming. And so we have found that Ruby on Rails is a really, really great programming language to learn those fundamentals, where you're understanding how these pieces all interact and how they're connected, and in order to produce an application. And from there, you're sort of equipped with the basis of your understanding. And then also you're leaving the bootcamp with this really solid process for how you learn. Like, you've learned for you what it is that it takes in order to be successful in programming and in order to learn these materials. And so then you would go off into your internship or into your job and potentially learn a different combination of technologies that create the full stack. And that's very normal. Like, what we teach here is just one way to approach it. And we expect that you'll work with many different ways to approach this particular problem of creating applications throughout your career.
along with that, I probably forgot to touch on a little bit of time that I actually spend in the classroom as well. We're right in the middle of it for our second cohort of the year. But we also teach professional development skills as part of the curriculum. So in the middle of your time in the classroom, I actually pop in for an entire week. And we talk about things related to the job search and help you set up things like resources for networking, your resume, cover letters, a bunch of strategies there, and really provide some education around how you can prepare yourself for a career specifically in tech, because there are a lot of differences with how the tech hiring process, resumes, and all that stuff works. So we want to make sure that we introduce those concepts to you as well.
Any other questions that we could help with? If you'd also like to ask a question in the chat, you're also more than welcome to do that as well. I also just want to pencil in, we have 2 upcoming cohorts left for 2021. So we are starting one. We have one upcoming in July, which is a little close, but we have one starting September 7th, and then we have one beginning, I believe it was November 15th, if I just look at the calendar.
Well, I just want to say thank you for coming and hanging out with us and being open and introducing yourselves and being a part of the conversation. Whatever stage you're at in your career search, wherever you're going, you're doing the right things and taking these steps and learning about new opportunities for you. You all are doing really great. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being a part of this conversation. And we're happy to help in whatever way we can. Feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn or on our website. You know, I am happy to help, and I know the rest of the team is as well. So yeah, it was awesome.
I have a question. So what do y'all recommend for, because I have a full-time position right now, but I don't think I'd be able to like stop it and do this program like full-time. So what are the, I saw that y'all have like those weekend programs. Like, do you recommend those? And do you ever have programs or classes that are like at night?
So our main boot camp is the main thing that we focus on, but we do a lot of the these one-off things in the evening, and we're happy to kind of point you in the right direction of like you know, courses you can take, or you know, going through Jumpstart is a really good first step. That like understanding some of the basics and where to go, and we can even give you some resources of like, here's there's a lot of, there's so many free resources out there to like, if you're motivated to learn on your own, go do that. Like, and we're happy to like point those out to you and things like that. Like Sarah said, it's such a cool community of people that have learned the skill in so many different ways that, you know, 10 years ago, there weren't any boot camps, and that most people learned how to program on their own. And so what I think is interesting is a lot of the senior developers now are all like, oh, I learned this on my own. I didn't learn it in college or through boot camp or anything like that. And so there are lots of really great resources, and we're happy to, you know, point you in the right direction and, you know, give you some guidance there as well. So.
Yeah, as Chelsea mentioned, sorry, I'm reading your question in the chat. As Chelsea mentioned, it's very hard for us to say like what an average student is, because our people who are find us and join Learn, I mean, the breadth of experiences in their life is huge, and the age difference. You know, we get people that have come basically right out of high school and decided like, I'm not going to go to college. I just want to get a job and this is the path. And I've also taught people who are like, I need to pivot my career right before I retire. And so I've had people that are like in their, like wrapping up their careers who want to come to Learn and pursue this as something that they do sort of at the end of their career and then into retirement. And and everything in between. But if I had to say like a average student, it would be somebody who has gone to college, at least some, or have graduated and is maybe in their like late 20s, mid to late 20s, and saying like, okay, well, I've done this career and it's fine, but I'm seeing limitations. Either it's not as much fun as I thought it was going to be, or I'm seeing that the ceiling is a lot lower than I thought. Or other restrictions, like in this past year, COVID. I mean, a bunch of people were like, oh, this industry is very different than I thought it was when we were kind of under these circumstances of being in quarantine. And so looking at like pivoting careers is something that we specialize in Learn. Is like, we expect that our students have had at least a little bit of job experience. And so we're taking those skills that you already have from working, from being in higher ed of some kind, and then packaging them up in a little bit different way, accompanying that with the tools that we learn as far as becoming an actual developer. And then that's kind of our path forward to help you make that career transition. And so people find us at different points in their lives. Some people have just said like rage quit their jobs and like said, I'm going to go learn programming. Or some people have done the like more, well, it's something I want to do, but I can't commit now, and have done a long time of self-study and gotten to a point where they sort of max that out and then we're able to make the commitment. And so I think honestly, like doing some self-study for a while is a really, really good path. There's like Chelsea said, there is so many cool things for free or very cheap online. And make sure you like this before you quit your job and change your career or do like a big thing. Like make sure you really, really do find it exciting. And that can take a while, spend a year or so studying and figuring, and doing these small classes. Look for workshops from us, look from other people, take a lot of classes and see if it's something that you're excited about. And, the transition will come when you're ready for it.
And we're pretty like low pressure organization. Like we're here to help people. And, I've had so many stories of, I remember, I think it was like 2017, maybe. I had somebody that interviewed. At that point, I was doing all the enrollment stuff, and they interviewed with me, and they were like, okay, I don't think I'm quite ready. And so I sent them like, here's some stuff to prep, here's some things you want to do. And they would come to like events randomly throughout for a while, and we're like doing stuff on their own. And then a year later, I get like a random phone call, and he was like, okay, I'm ready. I want to start next week. And it was so crazy. It was out of the blue. But I don't know, we like helping people. And I think that's why we do a lot of these events. And we're happy to like say, hey, let's help guide because the thing about self-study that I will say is the hardest is knowing where to start and where to go, because web development is a huge field. Technology, there's so much out there. So just getting a little guidance, go to meetups, talk to people, come to our free stuff, like just learn like a direction and dive into those things and just start learning. But we do, kind of going back to the complementary skills, like we talk a lot about transferable skills in career services and kind of throughout the course, because what's so awesome about the tech industry is that it's changing in how people want to structure their teams, and that they want folks with a lot of different backgrounds. And so if you have strong communication skills, if you're good at problem solving, if you're intuitive, if you're driven, that communication, working on a team, working in a group, those are things that people are looking for. That like, I don't remember who said it at this point, but they don't care where you learned the HTML or this tag or whatever, all those, they don't care any of that stuff. They want to see how you work on the team and what is your means of communication. And so we try and help figure out, okay, where did you come, what's your background, what were you working in before? How can we highlight those skills and plus the skills you learn in the class to make you a really marketable candidate? So I think that there's some cool things that you can highlight in your past experiences, in your if you did go to college, or even things that you've learned in high school, and how does that translate into the tech industry? And there's a lot of really great stuff there that people are looking for. Well, do you have anything else before we close out? Well, I just want to say thank you again. I hope to see all your faces again sometime at another event. And again, like I said, feel free to reach out. And I'm sure TJ will send you some follow-ups, and so you can get some more information. But it was a pleasure.
Thank you all for joining us. It was great to see you all and meet you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.